Hey, it's Tom from Texas, and it's time for another floppy deep dive. And today we're going to be diving into BBSs. When I was a kid back in the days, I used to run my own BBS called Temple of Syrinx, and I made a video about a year ago on it. And now I'm going to make a new video with a new timestamp, a little time traveling back to 1990, back when we used to call BBSs on a modem 300 baud, 1200 baud, 2400 baud, and that's how we reached out into the world to connect to other computers back then. And I used to be a Sysop, and I love when I come across these floppy disks that have my old BBS system on there and the BBS that I ran, and I could go in there and see the different messages that people posted and what was going on. And it's a timestamp of that little bit of time of 1990 of what a floppy could hold. And since I ran my last one, I learned some really cool stuff. The biggest news that I learned is one of the biggest YouTubers out there, the 8-bit guy, used to call my BBS Temple of Syrinx. In fact, he reached out to me and I got to talk to him one-on-one. He asked me a little bit of questions about my BBS because he was interested. He even told me he used to Google Temple of Syrinx to try to find it because he wondered whatever happened to it. So I gave him a little bit of insight. I was just a kid back then running it in the late 80s, early 90s, and he was just a kid then too. But to learn that he was one of my top users, in fact, he won User of the Week when I used to have that to whoever would post the most. So very cool to find out that David Murray was one of my early users calling my BBS before he became one of the biggest YouTubers out there in the 8-bit world. So I found that to be really cool. But this time I just want to travel back, check out what the BBS was like that I was using when I switched over to 2400 baud. Because when you went to 2400, you had to make sure you had a BBS that could handle that speed. And when I switched over, I stopped letting people who had 300 baud call in just because of speed-wise. You always wanted to keep getting more speed, more speed. And so here's a nice deep dive into my BBS. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get started. So now we're going to look at the Ivory BBS. And this was the BBS that I changed to when I switched from 1200 to 2400 baud because it was able to handle that, and then I no longer allowed 300 baud callers to call because they would just tie up the line forever downloading stuff. So this is just the menu key. So you can see the different F1 options here that you can do. If you hit F1, you could chat with users. If you hit F2, you had temporary access upgrade where you can upgrade the user. F3 would display the caller stats. F4 would drop the carrier, so would just kick them off if you needed your computer or whatever. F5 changes the request level to be able to chat with you. F6 loads the config file again, just like it says. F7 is the King's menu, which basically allows you to go in there and do your Sysop options. F8 put the caller in home, and then the Commodore key would terminate the upload and download. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into F7 and show you the Sysop's menu. So with the Ivory BBS, I tried a couple of different BBSs, and I'm going to look at this one first. But the Ivory BBSs has it where you can change your disk drives. Obviously, you had lots of drives attached, or everybody attempted to have drives attached to their BBS because you wanted to have room for people to upload your stuff, but you also wanted to have a reason for them to call and download stuff from you. So you wanted to put good games out there that maybe people were looking for, or new stuff that you've got recently, so they would come in and upload stuff, get credits, and then download, and that's how you could get a lot of different games. I don't think I got a lot of games where because people uploaded stuff. I think most of mine was done by myself, going out and finding it and trading with people and going to BBSs myself. But it was a good way to get callers if you wanted to have a really popular board, was to have, the popular games out there for them to do. Now the other thing we have is where I could do a directory of my drive, put disk commands, read applications, test the BBS. So that's what I'm going to go into. I'm actually going to test the BBS, and it asks which baud rate you want to go to. I'm just going to go with the 24, and this is just me going in, make sure everything's set up. But this is exactly what the caller would see when they call in. And I had my board up since April of '88. And if you haven't seen my old video, I'd recommend going out and checking that one out to see what I had before. That was my original one, my 1200 baud. And then I switched to this one over. It tells you right here, welcome. Everyone has to log on new because we started over with the new UC BBS. And the UC BBS and the Ivory BBS are very, very similar. Like they're the same things. It's like they just changed the names. But I had different versions of it. Shows you my tempo of syrinx and my phone number. My parents actually still had that same phone number. Just got rid of it within the last year. And now I wish I would have had them keep it. I could have loaded up the BBS one more time and called the original number to be able to dial in. So I'm going to log in as a member. Oh, I guess if I wait too long, it kicks me off. So let's get back in there again here. Because you didn't want anyone ever to just sit and type your line, because you only had the one line going in there. So anytime people were had it on, all the other callers were getting busy signals. So it was crucial to keep everything flowing, everything good here. Not sure how to do the check symbol on my keyboard these days to go to the color graphics mode. So I'm just going to hit enter. And I'm a member, yes I am, and I should be number 1. So when they log in, they get the information that they're validated, and they're able to access everything. Shows how many calls you get a day. So you limit the number of ways that people called and so forth. How many times they get called, so they couldn't tie up your line forever. And it shows my name and the time. And then here's the menu. So here's the basic memory of the Ivory BBS with the different things where they have the note and the chat and the email, as you can see, going all through there, and the different message bases and the user lists, up, download, area, vote. So we're just going to go through there and look and see what the Ivory BBS had to offer when people were calling in. As you can see, I got the date of 1990, so this was right in the 1990 timeline when this all happened. So what is that? 30 years ago now. I'm going to go into hit B and do note. So this is just the note that I gave everybody so they could go in there. I could post a bulletin on here to give you an idea of what's going on with the board and the BBS. C, of course, is chat, where they want to reach out to me if I was actually there sitting at my computer with them, where I could actually chat with them. Email's the same as it is today. If you knew who you wanted to send an email to, this is where you would do it. To be able to select it to do an email, I'm just going to email user number 2. I'm sure it's probably my Sysop, which it was, the printer, so I could just have, So just like typical email now, when the printer logs into my system, he would get notified that he has an email and you can do it. The F is so you can send a mail directly to me. And please keep here. So just a way to be able to communicate with the Sysop or whoever it is to be able to mail. G would be goodbye, so I'm not going to hit that. I'm going to hit I to look at the info. So this is my system info, kind of like in Windows when you look and see what you're running. Here's the system info that I was running my board on. So at the time, I had a Commodore 64C. I had two 1541s. I had one Enhancer 2000. And to tell you the truth, I cannot for the life of me remember what an Enhancer 2000 is. I believe it's a floppy drive, but I do not remember owning one, but obviously I did, which is kind of cool. So I'm going to have to go out and Google Enhancer 2000 to see exactly what that is. Wow, so now seeing this Enhancer 2000, I definitely do remember owning this and having it hooked up to my BBS, but it must have broke or something because I don't know why I no longer own it. I still have my Commodore 64C and I have my two 1541s, but I do not have this Enhancer 2000, so it must have went out on me. I don't even know where I got it or purchased it, but the whole fact that I wiped it from my memory completely is crazy. But anyway, seeing it is really cool to see it, and I wish I still did own it because what a cool little floppy drive. What I read about it is it didn't work with the fast load cartridges or anything, but I'm sure all I did was to have it out there so people had other stuff to either have a blank disk in there to upload to it or to have something on there where they could download. But really cool blast from the past right there, checking out this Enhancer 2000. I had a CD 2400 modem with an RS-232 interface. I had a Zenith Data Systems monitor that it was hooked up to. So I'd hook up my BBS to the green screen monitor because my other Commodore that I had hooked up to my color monitor for games and everything. So since the BBS was basically all text, I didn't care if it was all green screen. So that way I had a monitor for my 64C, and then I also had my color TV monitor that I used for my gaming and everything. So it worked out perfectly. And this green screen was the very first monitor I got when I got my Commodore that Christmas. So it was cool to have a reason to use it, and I used it quite a bit. An Okamate 10 printer and a home circulating air fan, keeping it all cool. So just basically blowing on my system the whole time so it doesn't get too hot on those floppy drives. And I never lost anything due to heat during all that time with the system computer always on, the drives always on. All right, so library, we'll hit that next. So library basically had like the rules. Again, that's like the rules in your Facebook groups. Tell them what they can do, what they can't do. I don't know if anyone ever read these things. Oh wow, I was so picky. I was like, don't even upload anything older than 1989 games. If you do, your credits will be taken away. So apparently I just wanted new stuff. I didn't want any of the older games, which I find interesting. If I didn't have it, I don't know why I wouldn't get it, but it was Tom in 1990, so different time. So let's see what else that were on the different notes. So that was the rules. I don't know if there's any winners of anything, because this looks like me just starting up a system here. Way to win credits. So number 4, there's nothing underneath jerks. And then wanted wares, it's probably just a game list of stuff that I was looking for. Look at some of these quality games that I need. Batman the Movie, Mean Streets, Double Dragon 2, Revenge of Defender, Johnny Quest, Scooby-Doo, Speedball. I don't know if I probably don't even still have those games. Interesting, that was what I was asking for at that time. I'm going to board out of that and go back to the main menu again. So that was the library, and then the message bases. The message bases are the most fun for me because they bring back the most memories reading it and seeing what's going on. Now you're limited to the amount of space, and I'm sure I described this in the other video of how many messages you can actually have. And it looks like 15's the max, and then they start overriding them. So here's the public one. So this Phantom Lord guy apparently was among those elite, and they had all the stuff and all the games. And anyway, I can honestly say I wasn't a huge fan of those people who thought they were something special and elite. But if they had games that I wanted, I tried to be nice to them. But I thought that was when things got crazy. And it looks like this was in February, so this was shortly after my last video where I gave you a little clip of the time. So here it is again, a little bit farther along with the new board. Now I've got my rockin' 2400 baud modem going. And just like always, people advertising their bulletin boards on your bulletin boards, trying to get people to watch. That madman, people would get mad when they fill up the board and when you only got 15 messages, so all you could read messages from one person, and you delete other people's messages so you never got to see it. People are seeming to like this new version of the game. Program Altered Beast is links. You must unlinks it for it to work. So if y'all aren't familiar with links, back in the day, that's the way that you would basically compress all the files, and then you would have to unlinks it to be able to play it. So it was just another way of putting all the files together, so when you uploaded it, you didn't have to upload 50 different files. You just had one big file to send. And so there were a lot of times where you had a links and unlinks games. But in today's terms, it's the same as compressing and uncompressing a file and getting it. I don't know if it actually made anything smaller. The links, I believe, just put everything all together. But in the time back then, it just made it easier to upload and download games. People having a hard time because it was probably busy or popular, or maybe I just had it down. Who knows? According to this, apparently it's down. So apparently there's stuff going on out there. People having BBS parties, throwing a little party. I never went to any of those parties. I didn't know these people. I was just a kid. Who knew who these people were? They were probably kids too, but I'm sure there were some grown adults also. So luckily, it looks like I had to take the board down. Computer is hard to get it back over. The printer is offering me his drive. So apparently my Sysop's going to offer me his 1581 drive, and he did. I did have that. I remember it. I don't have that one anymore. I have my own 1581. Basically, it looks like everybody logging in saying how they are liking this new image, because everybody has to log in new, and we had to start from scratch. So I had to get all my users back again. People were all big lovers of the CNET BBS. I never ran the CNET BBS. I kind of like the ones that I had. I like the ones with colors and could do graphics and so forth. CNET might have been able to do that too, but I just never used it or even tried it. Maybe not, it didn't even have it, so I didn't have to download it nor have access to it. So that was the basic one, the different stuff. And now we had the other boards on there too, the graphics and music, the BBS, number, trade, and hints, the Dr. Bone, and the Doctor's Pub, and the Funny Bone. So now we'll look at the last couple of options you had to do on here. And first was the user message. So this was just a message that I could put in there and tell them any kind of information. And then there's P for new password. So if you hit the P, this is just where you could change your password to something else. It's very basic, very similar to what we would do today. Type in your current password and then switch it to whatever you want to switch it to. So let's look at some of the other options that are on here. So now we could also do a user list. So I could see everybody who signed up and who's a part of this board. So this was the reset and trying to get everybody back in there again to sign back up, because everybody had to do new when you started a new board. You see number 45, that's David Murray right there, the 8-bit guy. So I got 67 people started it over in a month. So that was pretty good to get them back going and rolling again. Now this is the download menu, and this was a very popular place that people went, because obviously you can go in here and now download files. So you had your different stuff. You had your go-to menu, chat, download, get off, multi-file, pronto punter, searcher, stat. D, of course, isn't going to do anything for download because I don't have anything out there really to download. You could do directory, change the drive. I don't have multiple drives hooked up on here at all. So to switch to a different one, they only have 8 hooked up to this one when I'm just demoing it. So nothing else to really dive into there. The big thing that I liked on here that I would look at is the searcher. And this is where you could put out a list of your database, basically of all your games. And now they can go out here, put 3 characters and do a search. So this BBS had a really good search to pull all the different games I had. If they put in like the first 3 characters, and you could see if I had like Raid 2000, Raid Bungling Bay, Raid over Moscow, Rainbow Dragon, Rainbow Walker. So it was a very good tool to have. So this way they could go out there and search and not upload something that I already have. Plus, it was a cool database that I could go back to in 2022 now and check out my different games and what all I had out there on the database. So nice to have that. I guess I made a database of all my games somehow. I don't remember how I did that. I must have had a program, I'm sure, that did. But it's cool to have that, and it can pull that data and have this on this floppy. Again, so you had different stuff on there. You could look at your stats, and that would just tell you how many credits you had and so forth. Right now, I've shown 0 on there, so I wouldn't be able to download anyway, because you have to build up those credits to be able to download games. And then you could do a directory, and you could do and basically this is just a directory, and this is showing my user disk. Obviously I wouldn't allow this to even be viewed when I had it set up, so they couldn't even access this. But these are just the programs that are on the user disk, the different ones you could see. All programs are sequential files or so forth. So that's what was in on 8. And then you could change the different drives. When I did have it open, if you remember, I had those 3 drives that they could access. And since they're not on there, it just says that it's not working. The up arrow would be a quick to go to the next directory, and then you could also do other things. So that's everything that's in the download menu. Can't really show anything on that when you're here internal and not, on an outside source. But that's where you would get the latest games and the latest SID songs and the latest utilities by going out there. So we also had a voting booth. So this voting booth I was talking about, apparently there was a baseball lockout that was going on at the time. I was huge into baseball when I was a kid, loved it. So that makes sense of why I would do a vote about that. Again, just showing my stats is another one. And then also you could turn on line feeds. So basically that's everything that's on this. Go ahead and hit the G and log off and see the goodbye picture. And this was my goodbye picture everybody would see when they log off, which I thought was really cool. I thought the user Roscoe Dog who made these for me did an excellent job. He was awesome at this stuff. Later much. So let's go ahead and get this wrapped up. So that's it, guys. That's the BBS I ran back in 1990. I hope you enjoyed this time travel. If you haven't subscribed yet to my channel, please do so. Just hit the subscribe button. Please give me a thumbs up if you like this video. If you're a big fan and ran BBSs back in the day, post in the comments. Tell me what your BBS was called if you were a Sysop, or which BBSs you called. But I love this time of calling BBSs. It's one of my favorite childhood memories, and I hope it's one of yours too. So until next time, thank you for joining me on another Floppy Deep Dive.